Hey, this is a series of Star Wars reviews for the Star Wars Facebook group review page. This is my first one, and I figured, why don't I talk about the first Star Wars EU graphic novel I ever read? And mind you, this is also the first one I picked up completely in single issues. From the lovely X-Wing Rogue Squadron series, the prequel, Rogue Leader. Now, Rogue Leader is an interesting comic because it doesn't feel like a Rogue Squadron book, which is probably why a lot of people I've talked to who aren't fans of Rogue Squadron like Rogue Leader, and people who loved Rogue Squadron don't care for Rogue Leader. It's a weird book. Personally, I love all of Rogue Squadron, but this was what got me into Rogue Squadron, because this Rogue Squadron was a 90s, early 2000s series, and this came out, Rogue Leader came out post Revenge of the Sith, about 2006, I think, 2005, something like that. Rogue Leader is a 3-issue mini about how Wedge essentially gets Rogue Squadron. Now, I haven't read this since it came out, so I decided I'll give it a read. It's a very quick read. It's probably one of the fastest Star Wars graphic novel reads you will ever read. Sorry, that's redundant. Thumbs up to that. It's very good, action-packed. But it suffers from, it's a 3-issue mini. In my opinion, something should be at least a 4-issue. At most, a 6. Things like the Star Wars, the rough draft of the Lucas first Lucas draft of Star Wars was terrible because it was too long. That, and it felt like 5 drafts thrown together because each draft didn't make sense. So, Rogue Squadron does not have a full Rogue Squadron lineup. It has kind of a weird hybrid lineup of Luke Skywalker, Wedge Antilles, Jensen, Tycho, and Ten Nub. Now you might be wondering who Ten Nub is. Well, he was a B-Wing pilot in the Battle of Endor. You may not know him because I don't recall him in Return of the Jedi, but he was in the space battle over Endor. So was Jensen and Tycho. You know Jensen from, he was Wedge's gunner on the Battle of Hoth when they're in the snowspeeders. That's his, that's Wedge's back gunner. And Tycho was there, I guess. I think he's in both those battles. I know for sure he was in the Battle of Endor. Whether on the ground or in an A-Wing, because that was his preferred piloting choice, which I think is strange. This is the only time you ever see Tycho in this whole series, to my knowledge, where he flies his favorite ship, which is an A-Wing fighter. Because since it's called X-Wing Rogue Squadron, almost everyone flies X-Wings, and if they don't, they fly either the X-Wing Reconnaissance, which is used once later in the series, or some Y-Wings. But the problem, that's only the problem at the beginning. This ragtag group feels like they tried to get the big stars of Rogue Squadron from back in the 90s and just make a quick group to sell this. The X-Wing Rogue Squadron Omnibus. The first of the Dark Horse's line of Star Wars Omnibuy. So it's the first. Rogue Leader can only be found in this, and I don't even know, you could have probably found it on darkhorse.com or the Dark Horse app digitally, but since they lost the rights to that stuff, you get it in this, which you probably won't be able to find anymore, unfortunately. Rogue Leader, you fight, their main enemy, let me look him up here, was like the biker scout leader. Whether he's a actual stormtrooper or just a guy in a black scout trooper outfit, I don't know. It's not explained, but his character is he's sadistic, with torturing poor Ten Nub. We're going to get into spoilers here, while I give a full rundown and critique. This story starts out with all of the Rogue Squadron members of this lineup, just for this story, doing things around Endor, whether it's like Wedge and another pilot, or in Y-Wings moving debris so it doesn't fall on the planet. Ten Nubs and his B-Wing and pouring water, putting out fires because things are falling into the moon. It's not a planet, it's a moon. And Luke calls them all in for a quick rogue squadron meeting where they go to Corellia, Wedge's homeworld, and they go to this beautiful, like, one of the main cities, which, as I recall, they will go back to in the 2 stories after this, in the technically the second arc, the Phantom Affair. As I recall, they're in the same city. Just getting some R&R so Luke can clear his head, because Luke's thinking about leaving Rogue Squadron to start the new Jedi Order, which will take a long time, and a long time in this period. Then the Empire shows up to show who's boss in Corellia, led by this biker scout leader. And our rebel friends fight them off. Ten Nub chases after them, where he is captured. So the rest of Rogue Squadron goes to rescue him. Unfortunately, and this is where I am turned off now by reading this, it gets really dark because they torture Ten Nub because he's not only a rebel, but he's an alien, and the Empire is still very xenophobic at this time. Before they get really desperate after the Dark Empire trilogy. With poor Ten Nub gets tortured to death. Yes, so he is tortured to death in this book, which I think is a downside to this. They capture Biker Scout leader and stop this Empire base, and Wedge gets the team. And this is told in 3 issues. It's an alright read. The art in this I want to talk about because it is very reminiscent of Empire. Right here. Especially with all of this. It reminded me a lot of the Star Wars Empire run, which turned into the Star Wars Rebellion run. That happened for a while after... I think it started during when the Clone Wars was originally happening, when they did that run on Republic. It reminds me of that. And I like it. It's nothing like any of the other runs of Rogue Squadron, at least for a while. There's some that come close, but that's its own thing. It has its unique look, and I like it for that. So I should give my final thoughts on this. Out of 5 stars, I will give this a 4 out of 5. The only reason it gets a 4 out of 5 was the tone changes and it's just not good. The setup isn't that great, but the art is on par. It's a good passing of the torch, which is going to become a theme later. And also, what I didn't talk about is the foreshadowing of the Yuuzhan Vong War, which was ending around the time this came out. They were ending that war in the novels. Yeah. So and it's a good way to start off Rogue Squadron. So 4 out of 5. Have a nice day, everyone, and hopefully you guys like it on the Star Wars Reviews group. Have a nice day. And I am the first one to make a video review specifically for this. So, good. Darren beat me with the first review. He's reviewed like 3 things already. Ridiculous. Have a nice day.